reindeer project. I'm going to walk you through it. Remember in my other videos I usually go step by step, like a tutorial, but this time, since this is a project, what I want, like the objective, is for you to identify what tools, processes, and procedures to follow so you can successfully trace this image. When we start designing or learning how to work with Illustrator, we usually find these images on the internet and we try to trace on top of them, okay? We are remixing them responsibly. Why? Because we're not using this for like to sell it or something. This is just for educational purposes. So for this assignment, what you need to do is to add as many layers as you need. The file that I uploaded for you in Google Classroom has the original layer, this one that I put in here, okay? This one. But it doesn't have more layers. You are going to add them as you need. I'm just going to appear my layers so that you see the parts that I have in here. Okay, let's get started. First, let's identify all the parts we have in here. We have the moon, the stars, two mountains, this set of trees, like the basin here, another ground, and the reflections, okay? When we start tracing, we usually see like these parts, and we want to trace like around this, okay? For example, here. But then when we create the next mountain, we have to do the same shape in here. This is a mistake. Remember, in Illustrator, we work with layers. So that means that, for example, this one, this mountain over here, it doesn't matter if I end it in the middle. Why? Because the next mountain will cover that, okay? Now, having that in mind, let me start showing you my layers. The first thing that you'll see is the background, okay? This is the background and it has a reflection here in water, but I did not create it to different rectangles or squares. What I did is just one, and I played with the gradients. Let me show you. I'm going to appear my, let me appear this, okay, my background layer. And with the gradient tool, what I did was just to add the same colors at the top and the bottom for the reflection, but I do not have two different sets of rectangles. And then I have the mountains, okay? For the mountains, let me start hiding them. Oh, this is the same one. There. I have the one that's at the back, this one. And as you can see, I ended it in here, but the next shape will give it the mid mountain, okay? Now the mid mountain also has its own reflection. What it is just I copied this and I flipped it, okay? You know where to click. And then I have in this layer, well, I only have those two and the ground, this set, okay? So start checking all the details. And then for the trees, I have here two sets of trees. Another thing that you may notice or you want to do, you are tempted to do, is to grab your pen tool and just trace like this. That's a mistake. Remember, you have the Pathfinder options. So identify the main shape. In this case, it's a triangle, okay? So trace one triangle, start copying them, and use the Pathfinder options to combine all your elements. And as you can see, since this one is cut in here, you will also need a rectangle and the appropriate Pathfinder option to cut it, okay? And after you have that specific shape, I created the same in here. I identified the main one, copied a bunch of times, unite this, and then the other option for cropping it, okay? Once I had the main part, what I did is just a reflection. Now, how can I create the reflections? Very simple. You just flip them and decrease the opacity. Okay? What other thing do I have? The reindeer, of course, but first I have the front. This is an organic shape, very simple. And then I traced my entire reindeer. Okay? Remember, in here, it's very important that you use Shift and Alt when you want to create like perfect curves, and Alt to switch the direction of the handles for the anchor points. Remember that. You don't have to work more. What you have to do is to work faster, smarter. Now, another thing that we have here in the reindeer are these gaps. These two in the horns and this other one in the leg. That means that you also need to use the appropriate Pathfinder option to remove this. I traced first the entire outline. I filled it with this specific color, and then with the pen tool, I added these other things, select them all, and use one of the Pathfinder options for that. And to finish, in the same background layer, I added the moon, okay, with its own reflection, and the stars with their reflection. I did not reflect this because they were going to reflect on the floor, and that's not the effect that I wanted. What about the outer glow of the moon? This is very simple to accomplish. I have the base, it's this one, and I have the glow. It's a simple circle. Just remember the options we saw with the gradients. These are the gradients that I use. I did not start this at 100%. I started this at 0, okay? And then I just added a couple of things because I wanted a smooth reflection. And for glow, sorry. And for the stars, this is what I created. For the stars, I have, well, it's a group. The first path, I think I'm selecting another one, this one, okay. I created the star with the star tool, and with the direct selection tool, I just changed the size of those things. And this one is also a gradient, radial gradient, but again, I did not start at 100%, I started at 0. So it's very simple to accomplish this star, and I group them, and then I just copy paste them several times and decrease the opacity of some of them for giving that feeling of depth. Okay, so as you can see, is something very simple to use, to do. And here what I want you to notice is also the use of gradients in these two mountains. You don't have to use the exact same colors. You can change them. Just respect that depth, okay? We have to be able to see that depth effect. If you want, for example, instead of having a moon, if you want to put a sun, put the sun. I don't mind. Just remember that we need to have the shades in the background. They need to be darker than the ones in the back. Okay, so you can create a sunset instead of night scene. You can create a sunset because that also gives this to the objects in the front. It also makes them darker. If you want to change the background color to, for example, a gradient of oranges and yellows, you can do it. Okay, this is up to you. I just wanted to show you all the parts of this assignment so you have a better idea on what to do. If you have a question, please let me know.